Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, then you're listening to an unsociable hour, which would mean I'm Matthew Elliott White. This show exists to introduce you to awesome people, and tonight's awesome person is Tom Jefferies. Tom, thank you so much for being here.
That's all right, mate. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you very much. How are you today?
Yeah, really good. Just cracking on, really. There's not really much that we can do in this situation, but just making every day a good day, really.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. It's always best to kind of keep a positive kind of outlook on things. Has the pandemic had much of an effect on yourself?
Work-wise, yeah. It's I've been furloughed now for a good couple of months, and it's the unknowing of the future that is kind of unsettling. But I can't dwell on it too much because otherwise it'll just get you down. So trying to keep positive, like we say, on a daily basis, really.
Of course. Have you heard anything about when you might be returning, or are you kind of waiting on the government to give a bit more information?
I think it's from the government, and it's also my work as well, because my work is very people orientated, very public. So we're in a tricky situation of how do we move forward, but it's one of those things that everyone's going to have to get used to. So there's plans in place, but we'll just have to wait and see, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do hope that when the time comes, I hope that you are able to return back to work as safely as possible. I do hope that your workplace will kind of have something in place to keep their employees safe. That's
Cheers, mate.
No problem at all. Thank you for, like I say, thank you for being here. So, to some of our listeners who might not know, I'd like you to give a bit of an introduction, because you work on the All Japan show.
Yeah.
So please give us kind of a bit of an insight into the things that you like to do.
So yeah, I work on the All Japan show. It's been a good project to work on. Love doing reviews of the Japanese music. My main interest in Japanese is the more heavier rock bands, but recently I've been coming to the more generic idol scene. We review them there's a couple of groups that we're reviewing at the moment, which are very, very exciting to talk about. But yeah, it's mainly just getting as much material, getting unknown bands is my main interest, and getting them out there, getting them noticed, really.
That's awesome. Well, that's an awesome way, because what you're essentially doing is promoting the underdogs.
Yeah, so that's basically what Adam is keen on doing, is getting these unknown smaller groups, getting them noticed. We listening to them, we trying to get as much as we can out there just to get them noticed, because there are some really great underground bands that need just a little bit of help, but really something special.
It's awesome that you would want to make that your passion, that you would want to kind of try and help some of these rising groups coming up. How must it be kind of, how can I put it? Having come from kind of a metal background, how is it kind of trying to get into the, as you would say, the generic idol scene? How have you found that progress?
I discovered it by accident, actually, because there's a band called Banzai Japan, which at the moment I'm currently pretty much always on about them at the moment. And I discovered them only by accident at my first ever Hyper Japan, which I think it was a 2008 winter one. And I went in there all like, oh, I'm a metalhead. I only like the metal sort of styles, the metal alternative group. So yeah. Anyway, Banzai Japan came up on stage, never heard of them. And it really opened my eyes, just the energy from a group. It was mainly the way they interact with their fans on stage, and just it has a similarity to the whole rock show, trying to get the crowd in. And from then it made me look at other groups. But yeah, it was a weird, I had to step back and think, what am I actually listening to? Because throughout my life, when you're a metalhead, especially at school, you don't listen to pop, because pop is like, no, you don't do that. can't listen to that. You know, you've got an image to keep up when you're a metalhead. You know, you can't be seen listening to groups like. Do you know what? I don't even know any pop groups that are out there at the moment because I haven't listened to any for years. But it's that thing of you've got to look like you're metalhead. You never go to a concert, say an Iron Maiden concert, and go, "Hey, yeah, I listen to Little Mix" or something like that. You would never say something like that. So to start off with, it was very weird how I enjoyed it, but I couldn't really tell people about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can tell people. I love telling people about bands like Necronomadal, and Passcode, because they have that metal element in them, and generic idol groups generally don't. And you get some weird looks when you tell people that the other idol groups that you kind of like. So that was a weird time. But I've just come to realize that if you like it, forget about what other people think. Forget about what, you know, at the end of the day, if you like it, just go with it. And it took me a bit to realize that, but I finally have now just realized that I really don't care what other people think. If I like it, I'm going to go with it.
That is the best kind of way to think about it, because ultimately what you like matters. You know, if you like it, you know, fuck what other people think. You know, you enjoy what you want to enjoy. Judging by your appearance, I would definitely say yes, metal guy. I would say you 100% look the part, dude. And you know what? Even if you were to like Banzai Japan, even if you were to like kind of some of the more generic idol groups, how poppy could we say? I mean, Kelly was on a few episodes back now, and she was talking obviously about Morning Musume. Musume, sorry. And you could tell me that you like those, and you know what? No problem at all, because image does matter, but it's not the be all and end all, you know?
No, I think it all, like I said, it all comes from that whole high school era where you have to be part of a community. You have to be part of a group. Because when I was at high school, we always had these groups of people. So you had like the chavs, you had the hipsters, you know, you had the guys who always spent all their time doing in the computer lab, and you had like the moshers and rockers, and you weren't really, if you were seen to like do other stuff, you were kind of seen as an outsider, and you had to be part of a group. So that was very rooted in me from that very beginning, until an incident happened that I realized, you know what, this is all just rubbish. This is not real life. And yeah, I learned to just do what I want, really.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it, how kind of some of the habits and some of the groups that we find ourselves in, like in the past, kind of back at school, how that kind of way of thinking continues essentially throughout or into adulthood, should I say, until it does reach the point where you are now at, where it's kind of like, you know what, I can like whatever I want, I can look however I want, and I can like whatever I want. You know, how much confidence does that give you?
It definitely does give you confidence, but I also suffer from, I always think that people are talking about me. And it's always that in the back of your mind, say, because I can walk down, if I go into my city centre, I always think that people are looking at me. If I'm with a crowd of people, my friends, or I'm at a concert, that's when I feel safe, because we're all there for the same reason. If I'm on my own, I do feel very threatened sometimes, but it's just because of things that happened in the past that it's always on my mind. But day by day, you know, I've got great friends now, especially in this, ever since I joined this whole Japanese music community, I've made some of the best friends I've ever had. And my confidence is growing daily. So yeah, it's very, like I say, it's hard where it came from, but I do feel stronger every day that, especially, like I say, this community is something special. It really is. And I don't think I've ever been part of a more, what's the word? A more
kind of accepting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just anyone is accepted, and it's just such an amazing community.
I agree with you totally. I mean, I've said this over the last few episodes, that this is a fantastic community to be in, because I think we all come from different places, and yet we can all kind of appreciate that everybody has their own individual experiences and this, that, and the other, but we're all here to support each other because we're fans. We all know what it feels like to be an outsider in some ways. You know, you don't just land in Japanese music, I don't think. I think there's a lot of contributing factors that brings you to this community, and a lot of it tends to come from a position of feeling like an outsider at some point. I mean,
Yeah.
But what I will say before we continue on this train of thought, I will say that you look fucking awesome, dude. Like, your style is fantastic. So when you're walking through the city centre, if people are looking at you, just think, fuck you, mate. You know what I mean? It's you, be you, dude. Don't lose any part of yourself just because you're worried about what other people think. Yeah? Be you.
Yeah.
And that's what matters most, man.
I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, it's okay, mate.
Yeah, and just going back to the community, see, I have other interests that for years I've always kept hidden away. I'm a massive steam train fan. I absolutely adore engineering from Victorian stuff. You know, I've got a massive layout. For years, I've hidden that away. It's only the past couple of years since I've been part of this community, I feel comfortable to post videos of it online. And the first ones to comment back are the community people. You know, oh, that's amazing, that's great. And it really is a special community.
It is. It really is. And it's awesome kind of that you feel like, you know, something that is quite clearly, would you call that a passion of yours?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's great that kind of that passion, you are suddenly now part of a community where you suddenly are now kind of more comfortable discussing that. I think that's awesome. I think one of the greatest things about people, and one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast initially, is that everybody has amazing stories, and what your interests are amazing because they're your interests. And the thing is, if you'd have kept that hidden away, yeah, there would be no chance that somebody else could come around and could come to you and say, "Oh my God, I love that too."
Yeah,
you know, it's, you would keep it hidden away, and maybe somebody else who felt the same, they would also keep it away, and you know, you'd never get to kind of have that experience. So hopefully somebody listening to this will say, "Oh my God, that's amazing." I don't know too much about steam trains, but what I will say is I once entertained the idea of having one of those model villages, but the cost of the model train sets.
Oh yeah.
The cost of those is absolutely ridiculous.
Honestly, I've got a massive collection, and yeah, it ain't the cheapest hobby in the world, but nor is collecting idle stuff either.
Oh, no, I can 100. But well, it tends to be the shipping. It is a killer. It really is.
You'll buy a CD for like £5. Yet the shipping's nearly 18, and you think, what's gone on there?
Exactly. That's, and one of the, and I imagine with having kind of that, I suppose it would be kind of like a niche interest, kind of like steam train, but I would understand it totally, because I am a big fan of things to do with the Victorian era, and I have some kind of strange fascination with the 1920s that I haven't quite figured out where that comes from. But I suppose it's kind of like a very niche thing. Like, do you find there are plenty of outlets that provide that, where you can buy kind of those kind of hobby interests?
Well, in the past 10 years, it has all pretty much gone online, and as you mentioned about pricing as well, it's kind of knocked a lot of people out of the hobby.
Yeah.
So for the younger generation, it is really hard to get into it. I used to do videos of how to make models from cheap stuff, but the problem is that there are people in the model railway community that don't like that kind of thing, the elitists. And it puts people off, and it's kind of why I've taken a step back from that. So I do my own stuff in my own room, and, you know, I build stuff all the time, but to show it off, and you get the elitists that always comment back, or it's not the right thing, and you just think, do you know what? Sod off.
Yes, mate, exactly. Elitists. Nothing ruins a party like an elitist.
Oh, it's just I don't understand why someone has to. If they don't like it, just don't. Fair enough. It's not your. If it was yours, then yeah, say you don't need it in this world. Just let people get on with their own life, and just worry about your own.
Exactly, mate. Totally agree with you. I've never understood kind of why anybody would want to pass on a negative judgment to anybody else in any setting. I've never quite understood the purpose of kind of shitting on somebody else's day, you know?
No, there's comments that you can make to help someone understand and improve things. Totally accept all them sort of stuff. I've had many of comments, and that's great because they're helping. But it's the ones that don't help and just feel like they have to say something just to make themselves bigger, and it's not needed at all.
No, it tends to be, I imagine the elitist in that situation, it'd possibly be because finding out that you could actually do something creative and help somebody get a much more affordable set, it somehow would discredit their expensive set because then, so what they actually have to do is talk you down because it's going to make them look daft.
Yeah, it's all, to be honest with you, there's so many different types of elitists in this hobby. It's all just messed up. I could do a whole day of just talking about the people I've had to deal with. But at the end of the day, I enjoy what I do. So if anyone else has an issue with that, I'm pretty plain speaking when it comes to people. If you upset me, I will tell you. And that has got me in trouble in the past. But I'd rather be straight up with people than just lie to them. So, but this hobby it's my little enjoyment in life. I can just break away for an hour or so and just forget about what's going on. And if anyone has an issue with that, then don't tell me about it.
I totally agree with you. So let me ask then, what would you say has been your most positive experience being interested in steam trains?
Positive.
Or kind of like an event that made you think, oh wow, this is awesome.
Well, ever since I was a young kid, my parents took me to steam rallies and stuff like that, and I think it's the fact that, and it's been said in a lot of documentaries, and until you actually see one up close, you can really understand what they mean. A steam engine is the closest thing that humanity has built to a living, breathing object. You have to care for it. You have to feed it. You have to water it. It makes sounds. There's something magical about a steam engine. It's like Walt Disney built Disneyland around his train set. Basically, he wanted a train set, and that's how Disneyland started. And most people don't realize, but a lot of people with big imaginations start from steam engines because there is something magical about them. It's in Harry Potter. The Polar Express, they're magical things that no one can understand really why, but they're just ingrained in children's memories.
You know what? I've never stopped to think about that, but actually, when you mention that does make sense. But I never knew about that's how Disneyland was kind of idealized. But I am kind of thinking of, and all the kind of fantasy films that I can think of that are kind of like things like Hugo. Yeah. The film Hugo and stuff. Yeah, there is always an emphasis on steam trains, and I've never noticed that before you mentioned it.
Yeah, it's like the Railway Children, an absolute classic movie.
Absolutely.
Around trains and stuff, and yeah, the history of steam and railways is actually quite a lot of people, and I will admit this, a lot of people will say it's nerdy, it's all this anarchy. Yeah, there is that side to it, which I'm going to just say now, I am not a train spotter. I do not stand and collect numbers. I couldn't tell you a number I can tell you different classes, but I can't tell you numbers. I am an enthusiast. There's a big difference that people don't understand. And being an enthusiast just means you just love the hobby. I'm not standing with a notebook collecting numbers. I am interested in the mechanicals, the sounds, the smells. There is, like I said, it's magical. When you get close up to them, you realize, because a lot of people don't realize how big they are as well. When you stand next to them, you see them on TV and screen, but they are breathing objects. And I don't know why, it really has just captured me.
Dude, that's awesome. That is really cool. Have you had kind of much opportunity to go and see them then? Because you were saying that they're a lot bigger than you would expect. Have you had a lot of opportunity to go and see them kind of in person?
Oh, throughout my life, mate. Like I said, my parents used to take me all the time. Whenever I can, I go to a local heritage site. It just takes you away from everything that's going on in the outside world. For me personally, it's my escapism, and just to stand or just even ride behind one is just incredible. Recently, I have been getting a bit down because I can't get out there. They can't run themselves. So it's just been spending more and more time just running my own little train just to try and get at least the imagination going again. But if I can, I generally try and get close as I can to them, really.
Yeah, that is awesome, mate. That is I actually consider that a really cool pastime, a really cool hobby, because the amount of people whose hobbies rely purely kind of inside or on the computer or online, for example, my little brother, he is 10 years old, and it's so difficult getting young people out of the house to begin with. So it'd be fascinating to kind of open this world up to them and help them to kind of understand the history behind it as well. I mean, being able to actually look at something that precedes us by so long. Yeah,
I think the problem is it has that stigma of anoraks, and that is what that will forever be with this hobby and for steam trains. It's the anorak image. At the time when it first came along, train spotting, it was the sport of the day. It was Pokemon of the day in the 50s and 60s. All the wanted to do it. But the problem is it just became an anorak. And it's one of these things that has been lost. And sadly, like you say, to game, like me, I don't play games. I don't even have a computer. And the mobile phone is the most technical I get. But yeah, it's sad that, I built this layout, and it's the imagination. It creates stuff in your mind. You make little stories. You do stuff with your hands. And all that is sadly lost, all because of technology, which is great technology, but it has its downsides.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine. And what I will say is I know you were saying, obviously, I suppose steam trains or train spotting, although they're two different things, I suppose if they are always going to be kind of seen as one, and it's kind of going to be difficult to get around that.
Yeah, it sadly is it won't ever be as popular as what it used to be, the hobby and steam locos. Like for small kids though, taking them for a steam train is a great day out, but as they grow up, very, very little people are interested in them anymore. And there will be a time where it will die out because there isn't that passion for it, especially because most of the time it's volunteer work keeping these going. You don't get paid for it anymore. Sadly, I think go a couple of years, it won't be. Steam engines will be a rare thing, sadly.
That is sad to think, and I imagine that as we kind of push forward into a much more kind of how can I put it, like with climate change and with kind of what is it called, the
I know what you're on about.
Environment. I suppose that in a time where the environment is kind of becoming one of the key issues around the world, I imagine it'll be kind of hard to continue that.
There's already a act in Parliament that a lot of the heritage railway sites are trying to stop, and that is Britain want to stop the import of coal. And if that happens, then there is no way, not just steam engines, but people who have these traction, anything that is powered by coal won't be able to go. And sadly, it's an industry that we can't really use because it's British heritage. We invented pretty much most of the technology that we see around the world. And to lose the heritage of steam, especially the Victorian industrial, we have to be very, very proud of that. But sadly, it just seems like generations don't really want to take interest in any of it.
I think the problem is, I think that in the times in which we live, a lot of us take a lot of things for granted. I think that, especially when it comes to kind of history, I think there are so many things that we look at as national treasures, or we look at, as you say, heritage sites. But I think that we still take a lot of things, such as steam trains, for granted, and we don't kind of give them the respect and the attention that they do deserve.
No, and sadly, a lot of these railways, they run through sort of protected national parks, which are great because the more you use the train, the more the cars are then off the road. But somewhere down the line, someone's missing a trick, and it's all politics at the end of the day. It gets difficult. For me personally, I'm just passionate that at the moment they're still here. It infuses my imagination, which is great. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that kind of quite clear passion with me, because obviously, as you were saying, it was something that you used to kind of keep kind of hidden away, but I'm glad to hear that you're now kind of much more confident being able to say that. You should never be ashamed of what you like, and that can be in any format. If you like it, stay with it, brother. Stay with it.
Cheers, man. That is actually the first time I've openly discussed my hobby in depth, really.
Mate, you will always have listeners on this and you can talk about whatever you want, dude. This is your episode. What I will say is there anything that the listeners or I could do that could help the current plight of steam engines?
Basically, when or if we ever get back to normality, just go to your local heritage site and just spend a day there. Buy a train ticket, because they're going to need every penny. It's not cheap to keep these things going, and they're all volunteer based. So even if it's you're just one down the road, just get out there. That's all I can say, really, to help these guys along. Is just get out there as soon as we can. Take a ride on the train, because I tell you what, you will, if you've never been on one before, you will experience something. They are living, breathing time machines. So I do recommend going to anyone that you can get to.
That sounds awesome. If you'd have lived in the age of the steam train, what job would you have wanted?
Now, everyone would normally go, I want to be a driver. But to be a little history, to be a driver, you've got to at least do 50, 60 years of other work before you can even become a steam train driver back then. I'd probably love to do the whole mechanical maintenance side in the workshops, really. Getting in between the workings of an engine and knowing that you can repair them. That's really what would have interested me.
Yeah, because I imagine that the amount of effort and the amount of expertise that one would have needed, like you say, it doesn't surprise me so much that you would have needed 50 to 60 years in order to get to that kind of prided position, because I think that a lot of people would assume that rising through the ranks would be as easy as it would be today, that you could just take a course on it and, go to whatever the equivalent of the university would have been and stuff. And that's obviously not how it would have worked. You would have had to have literally started at the bottom.
Oh, you were scraping ash from the dirty fireboxes, and these guys, they learn. You learn as you grow, because you started out as a cleaner, which you learn every in and outs of cleaning the engines. That's how they built their knowledge. And yeah, and everyone, like I said, everyone would have gone, oh yeah, I would have been a train driver. But I'm happy just working on them, really, because I just think knowing the inside, working on these massive beasts, that the slightest error and they're useless. It amazes me how the Victorians and Edwardians figured all this engineering out. Really, they didn't have computers. It was just amazing.
No, 100%. And obviously, in the times in which we live currently, a lot of that, I imagine, would be very daunting to imagine. Like an apprentice, imagine if this was still the case with modern day rail travel, and somebody wanted to come in and be able to drive the train, and suddenly they were told, well, I'll tell you what, pal, let's start off first. wiping down the tracks after the train's gone by. Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't get it. People just don't realise that hard work back then was hard work, and you have to earn respect as well. And nowadays, it seems like you say, you can go on a course and you're a manager, and you haven't even done a day's work on the actual floor. And that's what I don't agree with that at all. I think to be a manager, you have to know what you're managing, really.
I think the one thing that is lacking in a lot of managerial positions these days is good leadership. I think anybody can go on a course and become a manager, but not everybody. That doesn't make you a good manager. And I think that's kind of the difference in society at the moment.
Yeah.
But dude, thank you so much for kind of talking about that and about the passion. It's going to make a question that I do plan to ask later, one of the situational questions, a little bit easier.
Okay.
So we'll put that to one side for now.
Yeah.
I obviously want to ask you the obligatory question of how you got involved with the All Japan show.
Yeah. So that came around. Basically, Adam put out a post just to say, can anyone do a podcast with him after the Metal Matsuri gig that happened in... When did that happen? October, I think that happened. Somewhere around about that. Yeah. This year's already just messed up. So yeah, and it literally was just a chat with a couple of us, just to talk about the gig. And we did the podcast. A couple of days, or was it on the night? He basically just turned around and just said, "Look, guys, that went really well. Do you fancy being part of the team?" And basically, since then, we've all just had a great time doing it. It was all new to me, but yeah, we've worked really well together, and hopefully people will realise that we all work hard, and Adam especially works really hard. So I hope people appreciate the stuff that we do.
Well, I definitely do. I mean, I've spoken to Adam about this at length, obviously, having been one of the previous guests, but I think you all do a fantastic job. I really enjoy the reviews. In fact, I was going to say that I really enjoyed the previous podcast episode that you did, where you talked about Banzai Japan, where you talked about the absolutely insane
47 hours.
47 hours. In fact, it felt a bit difficult saying that because that's how long it was. I mean, I can't imagine, but I think it's amazing that you guys did that to show the support and to show that solidarity. And that is the level of support that is in the community and is given by you guys, especially. So, yeah, you guys are doing a fantastic job. And I do really look forward to kind of keeping in the loop with that and seeing what you guys kind of go on to do.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate that.
So, what got you into Japanese music then?
So, it was all... Basically, I think most people agree that baby metal is a real good entry into the whole Japanese music scene. And what happened was, I knew it back at, years ago, 2013, 14, I want to say, he announced a concert at Nebworth House, Sonosphere, and I was going. The reason I was going was because, for once in a lifetime experience, you had Iron Maiden and Metallica on the same festival. There was no way I was missing that as a metalhead. That is like sacrilege if you don't turn up for that gig. So anyway, and then you look down the bill, and as you do at festivals, you kind of have a look at who's playing. And there's one called Baby Metal. And I was like, who the hell is Baby Metal? And it was around that time when they were first, getting introduced into the market and stuff. So I was like, I'm going to research this before I went. Anyway, and I checked out, and I think it was Doki Morning. And it was like, and at this point, I was still that metalhead, oh no, I can't listen to that. So I was like checking it out. And secretly, I'll be honest with you, the riffs, and, it was metal in the background. It was just the three girls I couldn't get used to, because never in my life have I seen metal like that. So it was like, and we were chatting to mates, and we were like, yeah, this is going to be crap. So, and on the day they played, it was a Saturday. We watched Ailstorm open up on the second stage, which I'm a massive Ailstorm fan, pirate metal, love it. So we're rocking out to them, And then the lead singer from Hailstorm actually stopped after the show, and he goes around, he goes, right, let's all go watch this baby metal, shall we? And we're all like, yeah, let's go and watch them. They're going to be crap. So anyway, we all walk over and we're all watching it. And anyway, the band come on as they do, the Cami band, and it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, we can get into this. And then the three girls came on, and the first few seconds it was like, oh god, this is going to be crap. Halfway through the first song, we were moshing with the rest of them. We were absolutely loving it, you know. And it was like, there was a moment of like, oh my god, I am so, as soon as I get back to my tent, I am so going to be downloading this. So anyway, we all got back to the tent, and after the festival, searched them up, became a baby metal fan, absolutely adored them. And it was actually because of YouTube that I started discovering other groups. You know, when the recommended list comes up.
Yes.
And I think it was Bandmade came up, and I was expecting another situation where there was going to be a band and then there was going to be some singers. But was I in for a shock? You know, I was like, oh my god, because what people don't understand, for a Western kind of metal, you don't see many all-female metal bands. It's very, very rare. And to see Bandmade all playing their own instruments and rocking as hard as they did, it was a bit of a shock. And it literally, since then, after that, I was literally just on the internet finding out all these Japanese bands, Audios. I was doing more, at this point, it was more the bands, proper bands, I was into them. You know, Mary's Blood, Bride Ear, all that kind of stuff. And it was like, this is a real eye-opener. But of course, when you go into the Japanese music scene, you can't help but pick up the other side of the idol side.
Yeah.
And that's when Passcode came into it. And I was just hooked pretty much then. And that's how really I got into this whole Japanese. And ever since then, it's like a passion to find these new groups, to go to concerts. And like, my first concert was Bride Ear at the Underworld. Sadly, though, not many people turned up for that show. But hell, that was my first Japanese music show, and it was absolutely unforgettable. And since then, I've just fallen in love with it.
Dude, that is awesome, and that is a great story. It sounds like every time you had expectations, you were tripped up. So you expected kind of baby metal to be a bit lackluster. They surprised you. Then you kind of went to Bandmade expecting it to be the same thing, and then you were tripped up again.
I think what they got with Bandmade is when he comes up with the recommended, it's just a picture of a couple of girls in maid outfits. And it was like, oh, this is going to be one of these, you know, usual quirky pop things. But it really wasn't. But the thing is, it's trying to convince my really heavy metal friends that this is, because all they see the image of those girls in the maid outfits or Audios in the dresses. It's not metal as we know it. They're trying to convince them. But over time, they have become fans of it, which is great. But it's like when you're first trying to get a real heavy metal head into it, it is that kind of, oh, I don't listen to that. And then they sit back and they actually, once you admire what they actually do, you just fall in love with them.
That is awesome. And I'm glad to hear as well that you're able to kind of, you know, your friends are being quite supportive in that they quite like it as well. Maybe not as kind of into it as you are, but just the fact that they're kind of you know.
Yeah, I don't know whether or not they're doing it just to shut me up, but
well, even so, I'd take that as a win.
Yeah.
because if they lie enough times, they'll believe it. You know. So that is awesome. So do you have a current favorite then, or somebody that you're listening to right now that you'd like to recommend?
For me, favorites is really hard. It's like when people pick favorite members. Like I find it really hard. But at the moment, I'm definitely. It's really because of what we do and stuff. I'm very listening to all sorts of stuff. You know, the new Necronomical. No, I can't speak today. The new Necro song came out yesterday, so that's been played on my phone a few times. To be honest with you, I'm pretty much got a random setting playlist, so I just listen to But my go-to band is probably Passcode. For a band to cheer you up, I reckon a bit of Passcode will get you in the mood for any trouble that you're going to face.
Yeah. My best friend Dale, he had absolutely no interest in Japanese music at all. I kind of threw it at him for years, and he wasn't having any of it, just kind of slapping it down left and right. And he eventually kind of gave in, and I took him to a Mutant Monster gig, and I took him to the Indie Idol and Infamous tour with Hanako.
Yeah.
And it was magical. But the reason I bring it up is because I recently, maybe the other night actually, I sent him Starry Sky, the new single by Passcode.
Yeah.
And he really liked it. So, and I'm quite surprised.
On that single, the second song on that single, it has a really long name, so I'm not even going to pretend to remember it. Because song names just get... If I'm listening to it, I can tell you what it is, but remembering song names for me and names of members is also quite hard sometimes. The second song on that single is absolutely, that is a killer track.
It is amazing, and it sees something brand new era.
That's it.
Because I play that all the time.
There's that is the strongest song on. Forget the title track. I said it in my review. That is a strong song that should have been the main song, I reckon.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, because I think that is brilliant. In fact, I think it's my ringtone. And I say I think because I only kind of carry the phone for emergencies, so it doesn't very often ring, so I can't actually verify if that is the actual ringtone.
I tell you what, when that chorus kicks in, though, it is just phenomenal. It is just amazing.
It is fantastic, dude. I think we actually like a lot of the same music, like not even just kind of Japanese music. I was into metal and stuff as well. I think we kind of both have kind of very similar stories. So I'm going to kind of take it to one side now. How many shows have you been to, do you think?
From what, like all together of doesn't matter what band?
Yeah, totally across the board, because I imagine that you have been to, as you said with the festival, I imagine you have been to so many gigs.
I couldn't tell you, mate. I know I can remember my first ever concert, which will forever be in my dad took me to Motorhead when I was about 14.
Motorhead?
No, it was 13. It was 13. He took me to Motorhead, and that it still sticks into my mind now. It was just, yes, I was deaf for like 2 weeks afterwards and stuff, but that was the memory that will always stay with me, that one.
Dude, that is so cool. I mean, for that being your first gig, a heavy hitter like that, dude, that is amazing. So I imagine you just kind of just continually progressed forwards. Yeah,
because the funny thing is, I didn't start out as a metalhead. I was more of a soft rock because I liked Queen. Well, the first band I ever bought the CD of was The Darkness, because pretty much when I was in early years of high school, it was the only real rock band, because none of this pop stuff has ever hooked me at all.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think I was watching, was it radio? And I Believe in a Thing Called Love came on, and there was nothing else around at that time that was like that. So literally, I went down. I had to buy the CD, but I had to get my mom to buy it because you know, we're old enough. But the Darkness was the real band I got into, and it was actually because my dad said, we're going to Motorhead. I was like, all right, yeah. And after that changed my outlook on music, really. And I was a heavy metal fan. I still am, and I always will be. There's something about a heavy metal concert that you can't explain to people until you take them to a show. The sense of community and loyalty to each other at a show is just amazing.
I totally agree, dude. I mean, I think being at any gig is brilliant because it's kind of one of the only one of the only opportunities in life, I think, where you are suddenly stood in a room with everybody who feels the same way you do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like one of the greatest, like one of the most powerful things you can feel without having to express it.
Yeah. And I was having this thought the other day, and sadly, I think those sort of eras are going to be gone for a while with this whole nasty thing that's going on.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we can get around it, because people need that escape. It is an escape, and people need that. It sounds, for people who don't like live music, then you're missing out, because for a couple of hours of a night, you can just it is that escapism that is so, you can't get anywhere else. You know, most of the time you can't get internet signal, you can't get Wi-Fi in these places because it never works. So you just, from the outside world, you couldn't care less. You know, you're there to watch a show, and it is magical. It really is.
Yeah, it's electric. It's one thing to kind of, I know people who don't go to live shows because they tend to still use this whole, I'll wait till it comes out on DVD or something. And it's like, well, that's fine. You know, for those people, that's great. But you will not get that atmosphere, that electricity. The thought of kind of running into people, meeting people, one of the greatest things, and especially about kind of the community that we're in, you know, in terms of the Japanese music, but in any music community, there's that chance of meeting new people.
That is probably the best thing that you on a daily basis. You would never go up to anyone and just go, "Oh, how are you doing?" You know, just at a bus stop or stuff. You'd never go up to anyone. But there's something that just excuses that when you're at a concert and you bump into someone you don't know and go, "Oh, I'm sorry about that." Yeah, I'm sorry. But you end up having a conversation.
Yeah.
Because you're there, because you know why you're there, because you're loving the music, and you know, you make friends. It's just there is a community that you get at concerts, and you know, me and Adam have been watching a lot of live concerts, you know, on the internet from streaming, and yeah, they're a lot of fun, but it ain't the same. Just isn't the same.
Dude, I totally agree. Going to gigs is one of my favorite kind of pastimes when the opportunity arises. And yeah, I think that not having that, you know, is kind of a real shame. And I think that you do lose something by not going to the shows. So I do hope that once it's safe to, and once everything's kind of in a better position, I would hope that, you know, those opportunities will come up again and we will be able to start going to gigs again, you know.
Yeah, I reckon the first gig, whatever it is just going to be so intense, because you can have all this built-up energy, and I just think it's going to be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, there's going to need to be something positive to come from this, I think. Were there any gigs that you were going to this year prior to COVID-19?
Yeah, I had a plan to do quite a few. Luckily, I didn't actually get around to buying any of the tickets, which, apart from... Well, actually, I was going to do Audi. I still got tickets for Audios at the Underworld towards the end of this year, but again, I don't know. But other festivals, I was going to do Iron Maiden at Download, Judas Priest, Bloodstock. What else was there? There was a few others as well, and Hyper Japan. I know it's not a festival, but it has music there. Just going to go there. Obviously, all of them have had to be called off, so don't really know what's going to happen there.
I imagine next year is going to be mental.
I don't know how they're going to do it next year. I really don't, because if they're all going to, people aren't going to be happy if all these bands are going to appear, because surely no one can get all that time off work.
Yeah, no, that is true. That is true.
But yeah, it's going to be, hopefully, if everything works out, then yeah, it should be next year. There shouldn't be a lack of music anyway.
No, but like I say, I think that you'll need something there to kind of raise the spirits.
Definitely.
But we shall see, sir. We shall see. So one of the questions that I feel I should now ask is, may I ask you some situational questions?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the first one, as noted earlier, would be if you had to pick between your love of steam engines or your love for metal music, which would you pick?
Oh, that's a bit cruel, isn't it? Oh God.
You don't have to answer. But what you'd need to do is get a steam engine that plays metal music as the steam chugs up.
Well, technically, steam engines are heavy metal, aren't they?
Ah, very good. Yes.
So I could probably go for them and technically still count it as heavy metal.
That is wicked.
Yeah, I'd probably go for that one.
I'm gonna.
No,
oh, sorry.
so I would probably say my passion would be steam engines because it's been in my life longer than I discovered metal. So
That is totally understandable, dude.
I would put my love for steam.
Okay. Next question. Would you rather live your entire life in a virtual reality or remain in the real world?
Real world.
Good answer. Good answer.
You've got to. You can't not accept life. So
If you were the owner of a steam train, what would you call it?
Oh God. Oh God. I don't know, a steam train. What do they call it? I don't know. It would all depend on what it sounds. This is going to mean. I'm going to sound so nerdy now. It would all depend on what kind of engine it is, because they all have different appearances and different uses. So, oh God. In general, I'd probably call. Well, they're all named after. You always call a steam engine she, because they're all girls. So. Oh God. No, I'm gonna have to pass on that one. That's actually too difficult.
That is totally understandable. It'll give you something to think about, though.
Oh, definitely. I'm gonna be bloody stayed up at night now. Name.
What would be your desert island disc?
Oh, okay. Desert Island Disc. It would probably have to be Iron Maiden's A Matter of Life and Death. It was the first tour I ever saw them on. It was the first album of theirs I actually bought. 2006. I remember it when Virgin Megastores was still around. Yeah, it's got to be A Matter of Life and Death.
That was a definite answer. That was kind of like you were very quick picking that. So I'm guessing there's a lot of nostalgia around that album.
That album, it means a lot. Like I say, it was the first album I ever got of theirs. Iron Maiden are my number one band. No one will ever come close to them. I've got good memories and bad memories, but they're all memories at the end of the day. Yeah, definitely that album.
Okay. Well, that's it for situational questions, but I would like to ask, as a lifelong music fan, in your opinion, what is the greatest music format?
What, like CDs and stuff?
Yeah, are you kind of like a cassette guy, a CD guy, a digital guy?
I've never been a cassette guy. I couldn't be bothered. I'm too lazy to be an LP kind of guy. It means getting up and doing something. I like the idea of the CDs, and I always will buy, if it's a band I enjoy, I will buy CDs because there's a physical copy. But I do like the ease of access of sort of digital copies. I think as long as they're paid for, because there's nothing more. Because I'm a music fan and I believe in supporting artists, I do hate when people. I will always go on iTunes or whatever it is. I will always pay for my music because I believe that you don't go to McDonald's and steal a burger from a worker, do you? I think you have to pay. You have to pay for stuff because that's their bread and butter. So I'm going to go digital is probably the best one as long as it's done properly.
Great answer. And I agree with you totally about supporting the artists. I think that there are far too many people who kind of just expect things for free as though it's kind of their right. And it is sad because you will probably see a lot of groups kind of go under due to that. So I agree with that. How have you found, in the times in which we live now, with things like iTunes, how much easier is it to find new groups and new music now than it was when you were younger?
It's definitely easier. Finding Japanese artists is harder because a lot of them they're still in that CD kind of. They're getting more into the digital, but a lot of them are CD. But it makes it a lot easier to get hold of materials because I remember the days that sometimes the only way of finding out new music was buying Metal Hammer because every month they used to bring it, and I don't know if they do it now. They used to get a CD of just stuff that you never heard of before, and it's actually how I discovered Hailstorm. And you just got a random CD, and that's how I used to discover new music, was just a CD from Metal Hammer, put it on, you'd find out what it is, and then back then the internet wasn't as good, so you'd try and find stuff. But definitely it's a lot easier nowadays, and it's also easier to promote because you can just send people links and stuff to the music now. So definitely, yeah, nowadays it's a lot easier to promote and get a hold of new groups.
Yeah, that is awesome, dude. That is awesome. So before we start wrapping up, I wanted to ask you the question, which I have asked quite a few people, which is, who would you say has been your main inspiration?
My main inspiration,
or I suppose what I'm trying to get at is, who has had the biggest impact on your life?
I can't really name a single person because a lot of people have affected me in different ways. Oh God.
It's okay. Don't feel you have to answer. We can always kind of remove that one.
Well, no, one of my idols is a guy called Sir Nigel Bresley, and he built these fantastic steam engines that revolutionized the way things are done. His designs were beautiful, and he never really lived long enough to see them through. He's one of my inspirations. From sort of the railway background, musically, Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden, the way he came back from having cancer in his throat, that really made me think. Other than that, it's just, yeah, no, that's all I can think of right now, really. Yeah.
They're great answers, dude. Dude, I'm happy with that if you are, 100%. How can the listeners of this episode and this podcast support you in what you plan to do in the future?
Basically, just check out the All Japan show because that's pretty much what I'm focused on at the moment. That's what I'm pretty much doing. Just the All Japan show, really. Just keep an eye on what we're doing there.
Excellent. I will make sure that I include those links in the show notes. I do have one final question.
Yeah.
Have you enjoyed yourself?
Definitely. I have. I've opened up a lot more than what I thought I would. I actually feel a lot better saying what I've talked about today. I've enjoyed it. I hope I haven't gone on too much, but
dude, this is your episode. I am totally happy so long as you are. I've been really interested by what you've been saying because I didn't know much about things such as steam engines. So it has been awesome to kind of learn something new from that. So thank you for talking about that. And I do hope that as time goes on, you'll feel even more encouraged to talk about kind of things that you really like.
No worries. I really, really do appreciate that, and I really do appreciate you giving me the opportunity to actually talk about it.
Mate, you will always be welcome back on this show. I think I've said it in the last one that I do intend at some point to get people back, and we'll kind of have another chat, see what kind of updates have happened and whatnot, mate. So you will be 100% more than welcome to come back on the show anytime you like.
Thank you very much for that. I'd love that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Tom Jefferies. He has been awesome, and so long as you've stayed till the end, you have been too. So until next time, stay safe, stay positive, and share this podcast with people you love.